Excellent. Off we go then.
Okay, fantastic. So, I say very good morning from Winnipeg, Canada. My name is Kausar Ahmed, and a very brief intro. I lead a not-for-profit organization, sort of research think tank here in Canada. It's called Conflict and Resilience Research Institute. I also teach at University of Winnipeg in Political Science Department as an adjunct professor, and also in the Natural Resource Institute in University of Manitoba. My research and today's presentation is about a project that I'm leading from Public Safety Canada since 2021. And as you see in the opening slide, the project is titled Extremism and Radicalization to Violence Prevention in Manitoba, acronym ERIM. And I just wanted to start because we have a very diverse audience today joined from various parts of the world. So if you see on the left side of the screen, you will see where I am located. Is typically we say middle of nowhere. So Canada is a large country, as you might have some idea about this country. So we are just in the middle, and the reason I specifically wanted to show you the map because this is tied to the overall scheme of intervention, because we tend to intervene and do a lot of activities where there are cases of extremism in abundance, for example in the East Coast and to some extent in the West. But here is a case. The province I am from is Manitoba, where I'll show you a number of picture slides where we see a lot of cases of extremism as well. The way I structured my presentation today, I'll briefly talk about the context. As I said, context is very important in the study of extremism and intervention. I'll talk also about why we have come out with this idea, and specifically the role of educators in this project. And then, of course, who we are talking about, who are the educators and why they are important. And at the fourth stage, I will talk about how we are achieving this, or we aim to achieve this. And finally, of course, I'll conclude and open up for the Q&A session. Just to start, because I know Stephanie and her group is based out of UK, I thought of starting with this slide that ours is not a version of channel program at all within the overall UK's Prevent program to deter extremism and terrorism. Ours is a very much grounded up program, and the concept itself is based on dialogue about the issues of radicalization in our young people. We are absolutely focused on consultation. We don't legislate and ask our teachers to report cases of terrorism, extremism, and violence. Rather, we educate them about the ongoing phenomena and that leads to violence and what they can do best in terms of intervention. So, as I said, just to lay the context of our today's presentation, I actually worked with two educators from states with regards to a project that I came up with back in 2016-17, right after my graduation from the University of Manitoba. And by the way, my background is peace and conflict studies. So I was very much intrigued with the cases of extremism and violence in Canada, and how it is changing over a period of time. Because if you remember, 2016 is the year of Trump's ascension to power. So in this particular project, we studied 29 community-focused projects in 8 countries, especially in the Western urban context, between 2001 and 16. And my intention was to talk to the project lead and the managers about their experience in dealing with extremism, and also what motivated them, how they developed the intervention, and what do they think about the effectiveness of the intervention programs they came up with. It was published by Lexington Books the following year in 2019. And if you're interested, it is available in Amazon and other platforms. You will have, this is important because we have captured the verbatim response of the project leaders about their challenges and understanding of intervention. So this is my, I would say, the primary background of knowledge that really started my idea of intervention. Then I ended up with a postdoctoral fellowship with Social Science and Humanities Research Council of Canada, in short SHRC, we call it here. I undertook it in the University of Winnipeg for 2 years. And during these postdoctoral studies, I really focused on pedagogical intervention to deter extremism and violence. And during this project, I ended up talking to a number of teachers, and that was, of course, my goal. But when I started engaging them, I realized that the teachers are so eager to talk about so many issues they encountered on a daily basis in the classroom, but they have no avenues to talk to. There are two reasons. First, they are not confident enough to talk about the issues of extremism and violence, either with the school administrators or the students themselves, because they feel hesitant. And secondly, it is a general idea that these teachers teaching global studies course in social science categories in our province, they are supposed to talk about this, not the math and physics and phys ed teachers. So there is a compartmentalization of the idea and how to deal with it. And the teachers of the other side in the social science are somehow perceived that they are the only one dealing with these things. So this triggered my imagination, and then I kind of came out with a project, submitted for the Public Safety Canada. I said 3.5 years. I'm going to talk a little bit later, but this is how I actually developed the concept of this project that I'm presenting today. Couple of very quick picture slides about sharing and telling you what is happening in a province which is aptly titled middle of nowhere. So in our universities back in 18, we have seen a wave of, I would say, incidences, rather communication, and we title it, it's okay to be white, quote unquote. So this slogan appeared in many of the universities' walls, washroom, and public spaces. And why the timing was very important and very interesting, and we were very interested that why it is coming up in the year of 2018. Is it somehow related to the wave of white supremacy movement that was gaining ground in the States, and so on and so forth? So that was one of the things that started drawing our attention. Then also earlier we have seen graffitis, write-ups titled "Lost White Civilization," Soros Foundation. These are typical, the slogans that often are seen in America as well, and in many of the European societies. Nevertheless, I was present in one of the case hearings in a small city west of Winnipeg, and it was a case of a teen who is found facilitating or and expressing intention to join ISIS. So I was surprised because it was such a small city and town, and how a young person was recruited from there to join the ISIS case. Then we have, I would say, infamous Aaron Driver case, a gentleman who converted to Islam and then openly, expressed his interest to join ISIS, and then he was put under some restrictions by law enforcement agencies. But what is interesting is that being a convert, he actually left Winnipeg and joined his brother, I believe, in Ontario, and eventually he decided to become a suicide terrorist. And God forbid nothing happened. He couldn't rather become successful, but in the process, he blew himself up in Ontario province. So moving on, I would like to show you also there are instances of homophobia and protest going on in our country. Most interesting is this case. The Base is a neo-Nazi group founded in US, and they started recruiting in Winnipeg in late 2019. And these are the posters they started putting up and actively recruiting young people throughout the city. And the base is very interesting because there is a trans-border connection. And the leader of the base is actually an American contractor with the Defense Department who actually and later on fled to Russia. And of course, concurrently, we see anti-fascist movement gaining ground in most of the Canadian societies, including ours. And also, to mention that we have also noticed a rise of supporter of white supremacy groups in the forces, which is really a worrisome trend here. And also, it is possibly important to highlight here that in one of the small cities in the north of Manitoba, we found a candidate who was overtly a supporter of neo-Nazi movement. And do not forget that here we have a lot of anti-government movement as well. As you see in the screen, somebody was trying to drive a truck in the legislative building, followed by freedom convoy movement shutting down the border with the US and Manitoba. So if I summarize, what we are seeing now is the changing trend and emerging trend of extremism, and where faith-driven extremism is gaining ground. A case of Steinbach, another small city here. We see the confluence of politics and extremism, the case of People's Party of Canada, and it is superbly interesting to see how the exhibitionist group are also gaining ground, which is the case of Diagonal and Jeremy Mackenzie in the screen. And of course, finally, not importantly, transborder influence of terrorism. And our main news outlets started reporting since 2018 about the returnee jihadist. And just to mention here that very recently, some news agencies from UK contacted me to track one returnee female person here in my city. So it is an ongoing, issue that is also drawing our attention. Hate and extremism is gaining ground as a subject itself, and hate motivated crime is taking place in a large number. As I as I said before, that in our project, our main goal is to bring the educators in the focus, because we think educators are still relevant. They are influencers, they are truth tellers, direction finders. And of course, we strongly believe that it is there are many things to be done beyond literacy and numeracy. For example, recently I was talking to a school, which I'll show a little later, a photo where this sort of engagement comes to fore, and to understand that students really look up to the teachers to understand complex social problems, and it is not the internet or the social media which has the ultimate truth about this one. Our project is basically, I would say, often I refer to a metaphor of tree, which is absolutely grounded on our ideas and our experiences, and which has resilient branches. And as I said, this is the metaphor we often use when we describe our project. So technically, it is a 3.5 years project funded by Community Resilience Fund of Public Safety Canada. We have two groups of people working with us, educators and stakeholders, and it has 4 phases. And these are the phases, the goals and deliverables first, then I'll go to phases. So our objective is to buy in educators so that we partner with them in the fight against extremism and violence. Our intention is to educate so that our teachers are empowered. So when I say teachers, just to reiterate here, we are talking about middle and high school teachers only, teaching in the public schools, not the private schools. Our capabilities, as you see on the screen, to share and build knowledge. And finally, our service is to produce a toolkit or a general guidebook to assist them. And as I said, the project is called ERIM. Our logo, our slogan is Engage, Educate, and Prevent. Here you see our website, erimca.org. And we have 3 phases. First phase is done. We are through it. We have finished consultation, engagement, team building, and toolkit preparation. And now we are just finalizing our toolkit, and we are planning for 14 workshops throughout the province. And in third phase, we are going to expand our network provincially, federally, and internationally by bringing experts here. Here, just a picture slide. Just last week, I was speaking in a school. It's a high school or grade 12 students attending the lecture discussion. And this is the key aspect of a project, reaching out, and what you sometimes phrase it, that reaching out and reaching in. So by going there, physically interacting with teachers and students is our primary goal. The future, each project, as many of you have already you have run projects in your career, in your pursuit, so you all might agree with me that we have that problem of a shelf life. So ours is a 3.5 years project, but we do have a future plan. And as you see in the screen, Canada has a strategy which we call prevent, detect, deny, and respond. It resembles very much with the UK's policy, but this is what we aim in the future, that through our project, we will deliver a toolkit. We'll remain with the educators through our online and offline presence to support them in understanding various aspects of extremism. And before I switch to conclude and finish my presentation, let me tell you one thing is that we are developing a library of symbols that various extremist groups in all forms and shapes use. So this library is very much essential for the teachers to understand and detect what kind of messages some of their students are really carrying, maybe unknowingly even. So you have tattoos, you have graffitis, you have photos in the books and pamphlets. So this kind of continuous engagement is our focus for the future of this project. And as promised, that was my last slide. So please be in touch, and I'll be more than happy to share my slides with Stephanie if she agrees. Not to worry, and you can reach out and we can engage and discuss with you also and understand through mutual cooperation. So thanks for being with us. And I would like to end by saying that together we can defeat extremism in all its shapes and forms. Thank you once again.
Well, thank you very much. This was bang on time and very interesting. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions afterwards. Are you happy for the second presentation, and then we do all questions together? Okay? Yeah. All right, Mohammed, I have your PowerPoint, so would you like me to share that for you? Yeah. Okay, hang on. Well, I know. Okay, can you see that okay? Okay, brilliant. So Mohammed, you will have to let me know when to change the slides. I'll just be your assistant for the evening, if that's okay. So if you just want to introduce yourself and then just get going, really, that would be great. Thank you very much. You're muted, though. You're on mute. Mohammed, you are mute.
Thank you very much, Professor Stephanie. Thank you very much, Professor Kauser, for your wonderful presentation. And although I have learned something new from you, which I'm going to use it here in Kenya, and at the same time, I would like to thank the Hub for this opportunity. My name is Muhammad Abdullahi, born and raised, educated in Kenya, and at the same time of Somali origin. And when you heard the word Ashabab, obvious, Somalis are typical suspects, whether they are part of it or not. So I was involving myself working with youth for almost 13 years from now. I started the work of NGOs, or let's say like working with young people in 2009. when I am done with my high school, and up to now. And I used to work with Amnesty International as a volunteer. Then formed an organization, work with them. In 2015, I formed Agent of Peace, which now focused on CVE, and the main goal was Al-Shabaab. Somalis are Somalis. We are not part of them. And today we reach out to so many young people, teenagers, community members, and our main goal is purely PCVE and peace building. We don't involve humanitarian like food or security, something like that. We work with schools, primary and high schools, university programs, we have it. Then youth, those who are not going who are going to schools or universities, and also the community members at large. We involve security agencies, we involve religious leaders, and we involve also some politicians, but not all politicians. Some politicians thrive when communities are divided. Let's go to the next, Stephanie. Share my experience, first of all. What motivated us to form Agent of Peace was because of what happened in Garissa University College. We have lost 147 students in Kenya in the name of our religion, in the name of our ethnicity, in the name of Somalia. And the people who lost their lives were not in fight with anyone. They were young people, the future of this country. And we feel like we have a role to play to make sure that this is not our religion. And our religion also not support that kind of extremism. Islam means peace, and you have to look for peace. And our work, going to the field of extremism is a call, not a choice. You don't choose to do this work. It's a call. It's something that you have a passion that drives you to do that work. Not something that's driven by either monetary reasons or being a famous, no, but it's a passion, it's a call from God that you have to do that work in order to change the society. And Agent of Peace was formed in a reason to address these kind of challenges. How can the community come out to talk about the issue of extremism publicly? Because if we look what used to happen in 90s or 10 years ago from now, Mr. Wycliffe was he's a witness that nobody was able to talk about FGM. If you raise the word FGM, it means you are attacking culture of the community, which means now you are someone who has come with a foreign idea. So the same was here. Nobody can come out publicly talk about how extremism is affecting everyone, whether you are Muslim, whether you are Christian, wherever you are. So we provided a platform where now we can discuss this issue publicly without any fear, with the government, with young people, with the community, with religious leaders, both Christian, Muslims, Hindus. Sometimes we invite them, though they don't come. So we have seen that people are coming out to talk about this and how it's affecting them in terms of security, business, development, even children in schools, how it's affecting them academically. Now they come out and talk about it. And let's go next slide, please. Most youth initially, we are non-violent. If you go back and do research on what happened in Kenya with Al-Shabaab, if you do a clear examinations of what happened, you will find that there was not a single Somali person from Somalia or refugee who was involved in those terrorism acts, apart from Garissa University College, who was the ringleader from Wajir. So it means now Somali young people, we don't entertain those who are based in Kenya. We don't support extremism or radicals, but peace and security, and also peaceful coexistence. So that's number one. Number two, some of the problems we are facing as young people here in Isili is that you find majority of the youth are unemployed. And at the same time, they work hard to earn less than $100 to support themselves rather than going to join an extremist group. So most what we have realized is that there is a classes of people here. There are those who radicalize, those who are being radicalized, and those who recruit them to the VE groups. So radicalizers mostly are from foreign countries outside. They are not within the community. They are from outside the community. They came in many shapes. They came like investors. They came like supporters. They came like people who want to save this young person. They came in many kind of forms. So, but if you look at this person, originally he's not from Sili or from your region. He's from another region. That's number one. Number two, the person he targets is from the communities, from that region, from your area. Number three, the person who will transport that young people to Somalia, again, is a foreigner because he has to come from Somalia here, take him up to Somalia or any other country. So which means now the community here, they are not part and parcel of the radicalizations, also transport, but they are victims of radicalizations. So at the same time, when the government tries now to act forcefully, it's now when the young people try to respond in a way that our rights has been violated by the government, but not asking themselves why the government is responding this way to us, why there's no platform of talking to one another. You see, because the person who is now doing the work, actual work from top, and the one from the grassroots are not from their community, from the people here within. They are from outside. So it will be very hard for you now to convince the community that, the government, that we are not part and parcel of this process. Because the person they see is a Somali person, is a Kikuyu person, is a Luo person, but is a Muslim. You see? And I want to transport to Somalia, not a Kikuyu person. And you don't know. You just find out that after 3-4 days that your son is in Somalia. And whenever he's coming back, you don't know what he's coming back to do. Or he's in Middle East. You don't know what he's going to do there. So once he's coming back as a different person. So if you understand Islam very well, the community lives. We have two communities here. We have Somali who are refugees. Then we have Kenyans, both Somalis and non-Somalis. So whenever something happens in Kenya, we find in Isli a number of lorries from the police because of what operations. So the thing is, operation for who to who? Because the person who commits that crime isn't from Isli. Because the name that's committed is being associated with Somali community. That's why now they are here. So before I start to come out, there was no a single young Somali who came out and addressed the issue to address it. No. I think I was the first person who came out and provided the platform to the community and the security agencies, other than just hiding behind the curtain and saying that we are doing CVE without any tangible reasons. So the youth in Isli, we are peaceful and violent, but at the same time, people can take advantage of that. And it can be a very challenging process for young people in Isli when government attacks, when government arrests them or detain them. But at the same time, we are not part and parcel of that program. Let's go next. So some of the challenges faced by youth are here. Number one, hopelessness among the youth that lead to drug extremism. Hopelessness, like what now? Extremism. You know, when there's unemployment of young people, dropout of schools of young people, at the same time, burden from the households. Seem like you're the firstborn of the family, and everybody's looking on you, and you need to provide the family, and you have nothing to provide. So it will be easy for you to fall to each and every trap. So radicalizations don't come directly like, yay, come and join us. No, it will come in a process. Number one, the person will hear your problems, how happy you are. Today, I give you $10 to go and support the family. Tomorrow, $5. We are brothers, we are sisters, we have to help one another. After a couple of months, you're very much closer to me that time, which means now I'm the one to provide you indirectly. So you have to accept me. After that, now it comes the process of what now? Radicalizations. How will it happen now after that? We have been targeted by the government. They don't want to see us. We are marginalized. People have been arrested. We have to stand up. We have to fight. We have to do this. You see, then step by step now comes in the word of jihad, fighting for your people, fighting for your religion, fighting for your cause, something like that. At the end of the day, after like a couple of months, if not 1 year, you'll find yourself in Somalia without knowing. So that person did his job. So then we have another drug and substance abuse. If you look at what Al-Shabaab does or ISIS, they always target the smartest people in the community. It is very rare to see these people recruiting a drug abuse. They don't look. They always target the smartest in the community. That's people. The people who they see like this person can change the mindset of the youth. So if we have drugs here in the city, we have to think as the effects of drugs, but that will not contribute to radicalization unless now there's a rehab center where we take the young people for rehabilitations, being changed, then they meet there to change their mentalities. Their mentality and now try to radicalize from that point. But within the community, they target the smartest. Again, we have juvenile and organized crimes gangs. Here in Italy, if you Google, you can find, and just Google the killer cop in Italy, either in YouTube or in Google, you'll find it. There is people, especially the police side, who have been assigned to kill any criminal gangs in Italy. The reason be, number one, is these young people, they don't have access to education. If they have, now the question is, do they have the time to go and study? No, because they are under pressure from the community, from their families to provide them. So if this child or teenage is being asked, our neighbor's son provides them daily A, B, C, D, and you are older than him, you're not helping us. So what will come to his mind? Now need to go to school, have to provide you, your family. So the first thing he will do is drop out of school. After that, now join a group. After that, now start what drug abuse and substance. Followed by what? Now stealing and robbery. The next stage now is for them to use what? Weapons. Either crook weapons, like let's say like knives or bangas. Then you move to what? Now guns. So before they reach all the way to guns, there are special cops who have been assigned to eliminate them. They can arrest them or detain them, arrest them, take them to court, being sent to prisons. But no. Reason B, you take him to the police stations. The following morning, you will not find him in court. You will find him in his house. Why? Because he bribed the OCS or the officers who are in charge of the stations. As little as much as $500 going up. So the officers, like, see, this is a money-making machine. Let him go out. Let him do again do the robbery. Let them bring back to the station, give us the money, then go. So now we have the killer cop on one side. So whenever you see this person, he has been arrested and now see he cannot change, he kill. So many young people were killed by the police. So that young man who has been killed by the police, he has siblings, he has brothers, sisters, relatives. How will they now perceive the police or the government? The enemy of my community. We have to fight back. So the hope they have is now to join who? The group, in the name of defending my people and my religion. The other one is police harassment and brutality. In Italy, there's a funny name we were given 10 years ago by Kenyan police. If you see a Somali person, you see ATM. Because whether you have it happened to me personally. Personally, I've experienced. I was arrested, detained by police. They asked for my documents. I provided. They said, no, we want money. I tried to explain myself why. You know what I was told? The only thing they can do is just to write suspected sympathizer of Al-Shabaab. You find it with these materials. They have materials written in jihad words. They'll show you direct. We just hand over to you to the police and to tell the police with these documents, and that's it. The moment they hand over to you, that time you are done. You are gone. So they ask you like how much? 100,000, which is $1,000. Now you negotiate up to the amount you can afford. So I personally paid 50,000 shilling for my freedom. Now ask me, how can I convince that person that this government, you see it here, is there to protect us, but not to join extremists? The other one is political incitement. If you look at the Kenya political stage, they only use two rhetorics: us versus them. And politicians, the word they use always is our people, our rights. We must defend ourselves because the government is fighting us. The government is doing us ABCD, and yet he is the government. So the community cannot differentiate between the government and the politician. Who are the lawmakers? We have anti-terrorism law in Kenya. Who passed? Your own politician, your own MP, is the one who passed it. So now he's using that law, the same law, to know that our people are being targeted by the who? By the government. So politicians, they thrive when communities are divided. Us versus them. Either behind the doors or face to face. Let's go next.
You're actually out of time. It's been 20 minutes. So I'm sorry I have to stop you there, but I'm very happy to share your slides. And I think actually what this presentation has really shown is what comes before almost Kava's work. So it's the kind of introduction, what happens, why are people drawn into violent extremism. So I think it's really, really interesting, and it's quite two complementary presentations. So I'm sorry, but if I let you go on, we won't have time for questions. So, but please, if anybody wants the slides, and Mohammed, you're happy to share them, I'm happy to share them on your behalf. Or obviously you can email Mohammed directly if you want to put your email address in the chat. I'm just going to stop presenting. So, but are there any questions? I'm sure there will be plenty of questions for either candidate and both. So who wants to go first? Any questions? Jean-Claude.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. So thank you so much to the two speakers. A very good, interesting presentation. So Dr. Ahmed, first, I like the approach. I think that's about the same, trying to prevent extremism, prevent, detect, and deny. Now, that I think will link us back to, now, yeah, for you to prevent or to deny, you need to understand, to have a certain way of conceptualizing. So I don't know, from the point of view of the RRIC, how do you define extremism? Yeah, where do you draw the line? Because I know it's a very complex concept. What is to be, especially working in schools, how do you detect that? At which point you think, no, this is not simple discussions. The young man, the young girl is now falling into extremism. So how do you conceptualize this term in a very normative way? And to finish, I found quite interesting approach. What's the CRRC is doing? Dialogue, raising awareness through a pedagogical approach. Do you or would you also use, I don't know how it works in Canada, but the losing nationality potentially as a deterrent? In the UK, we had in 2015 the case of a young girl, Shamima Bigon. Maybe you've read that. Yeah, she was only 15 at the time, and she traveled to Syria, and sadly, she was stripped of British citizenship. So it's still on the news today. I don't know how it works in Canada, but would you use that? Would you consider those kind of discussions in your approach during your conversations with young people, to use that as a deterrent? Or if not, would you think that that would be working? And Mohammed, finally, as well, conceptualization as well. What is, I don't know, how do you define radicalization, Mohammed? And you've used a very difficult kind of discussion between extremism being a call from God or not being a choice. So that's really, really challenging. Now, would we say that young people, I don't know how Agent of Peace take this, what's the view on that? So would we say that these young people are just innocent, would you say, because they believe it's a call from God, maybe from Allah, or and it's not a choice, and they're still young? Usually youth is seen as that time of being a naive and immature. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stephanie, should I go ahead? Okay. Mr. JC Kayumba, please pardon me if I mispronounce your name. Thank you very much, sir, for your insightful question. So I'll try to tackle you have two parts question for me, I believe. First, how do you define extremism, and how it really works with regards to young people in the class and what we are doing about it? And I think three parts, sorry. So the second part would be what we are trying to do now in our project. And thirdly, you also want me to comment on the revocation of citizenship of foreign fighters, those who traveled and joined ISIS willfully. So I'll start with the first one. CREEC is an organization that I co-founded in 2017. It's a research institute, and which has undertaken the project called ERIM. So ERIM is a project, just a standalone project. CREEC is an organization, and we do a lot of works with regards to Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. If you kindly, I'll be very happy if you check our website, you will find our many activities. So ERIM is, as I said, a project that I conceived through my postdoctoral studies and all. And of course, the first question and the challenge is, how do you define extremism? It comes in so many ways, in so many types, in so many hues. So this is absolutely it was our first task when we embarked in the first year of the project. So what I did, and given my experience in this area, so I kept it totally open. So in our first educators meeting with 14 educators, so in our first meeting, our agenda was, how do we define extremism in children, in young people that you teach? what does extremism means to you? Do you detect it? Are you a detector? Do you have a machine? Do you have a perception? The way you detect mines, the handheld mines or archway you go through and something, blinks and you detect someone. How do you do that? Because remember, detection and intervention is intertwined. If you can't detect, then you can't intervene, or you wrongly intervene. And which is, I'm sorry to say, my British friends and colleagues here, that you have totally out of the line with your channel program. So I studied very closely channel program over years. I interviewed your officials and NGO workers, so on and so forth. That is why I'm very confident. So I was very conscious right from the beginning. So over 16 such meetings with educators and stakeholders, we come to a common definition of extremism that we are particularly see amongst the youth. And the way we came out, and this is what is included in our toolkit, which will be very soon available online. I'll be very happy to share with you, sir. You'll find our perception of extremism there, which is, just I'm going to share with you very briefly here, is that any ideas, any ideologies which connects with violence, anything that is related to perpetrate violence, has a potential to violence, is extremism in our definition, and which has been corroborated by, as I said, stakeholders and educators too. In our projects, stakeholders are guardians, school administrators, law enforcement agencies, and community work, ethnocultural groups like Muslims, Hindus, and all this. So this is what is our standard definition. And this is, violence is the main concern. So ideologies, there would be thousands and thousands. It will change from Islamist to environment to incels to you name it. But there's not the point. Point is whether somebody is trying to justify violence to achieve something. So that is first part of response. Second part, in the project, which is called ERIM, Extremism and Radicalization Prevention in Manitoba. Of course, the second year that we are in this project, our basic job is to finalize the toolkit, which will contain all these things, and to run 16 workshops. So these workshops, we are going to talk to teachers provincially. As I said, it's buy-in. I have to convince them that it is important to intervene. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You have hundreds of tools online, right? You can download this tool, that tool. I have gone through 2 summer institute with Western State Center in US just to understand what is there. Enormous amounts, like Anti-Defamation League, you name it, sir. So that is not the point. The point is whether the teachers voluntarily agree that this is a problem. And in order to tackle the problem of extremism and violence, they agree that, okay, this is good. We can try these things out. That is our goal. So in this year, we are trying to do that through workshops, engagements, webinar, bringing experts in the discussion. Coming to last point, sir, personally speaking, as an expert in this area of intervention, I strongly discourage governments to revoke somebody's citizenship. I strongly discourage. In the case of the person that you named in the UK, I don't know if you're following this case closely, sir. There's a book came out, trying to remember the author, it's called 5 Eyes. And since I teach this module, I am very much aware. I purchased the book, and there he mentioned about the, how Shamima was trafficked into Turkey and then Syria. And there was an involvement of the our intelligence groups and also the US. Possibly you know it, you are laughing, so I'm just repeating here. So that is the problem, right? At the macro level, we sometimes inadvertently create an extremist. So we are definitely, and personally speaking, I always advocate at the policy level, absolutely not. A citizen has taken certain wrong decisions. It is on to us to rehabilitate and reintegrate. We just cannot wash our hands off. And we don't know the circumstances of someone. We just quickly judge that, okay, at the end of the story, we don't want anything about it. But that might not be the case, as it might appear in the case of Fatima Begum in the UK. I don't know. Mr. Rishi Sunak and his team might agree to give her back her citizenship. Thank you, sir, for your question again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mohammed, please.
Mohammed? Okay, you're still on mute.
The question was extremism as a call from God, right? First of all, I have said working in the field of extremism is a calling from God, not extremism from God. And extremism is like a strict adherence to a set of belief, either religiously or politically. So anybody can be an extremist, not only religion or political. So it depends the angle you want to address. So like now in Sicily, the one we have is religiously based because it contains the words jihad. So how will you now narrow down that one to come in terms with the young people, those who have never come out to talk about extremism publicly? Number one thing is we don't rush to religious. We start with politics. We ask them, some of them were not born in Kenya. We have people who killed Kenyans in 2008. People who were burnt in a church somewhere in Kiambaa. So the people who did that were Christians. The ones who lost their lives were Christians. Why? Because of politics. So I cannot blame Michael or Jackson or my politicians for crimes committed by another people against another people. The same now happens here in my religion or in terrorism based on religion. Now, if someone from somewhere comes here and commits suicide, did he do under your name? You ask them. Automatically, no. Under religion, no. So first of all, you have to create an environment where now what you want to discuss is something that's affecting all of us, not targeting particular group of religion. Radicalization is a process now where individual or groups have been taken into a process that transforms them into believing an ideology. The ideology of Al-Qaeda is different from ISIS. That's why you see they always fight and there's a conflict between them. The ideology of Trump followers are different from Biden followers. So Trump followers, they have stormed, was it the White House? I don't know. They have stormed, they have took up a whole building because of him. So if that's an extreme, what is it? If these people are not radicalized, how did they go through that process? We have Nazis. We have people called, I don't know, white supremacists who believe only the white have the right to live sometimes. You see, so this is an ideology where now you take through an individual, you take the individual through a process. And it will take a time where now he believes in that ideology completely. I personally sometimes receive threats from my own immediate families because we have some who are more radicals, we call them radicals, because they believe they are more Muslim than us. You see, so how will you now respond to that person? You can't detain him, arrest him, you can't throw him stones, you can't. It's just a mentality. And when young people are coming up, they're in schools, is when they need to be nurtured, to be mentored. You know, what I have learned from Dr. Kauser is the idea of the 5 pillars: prevent, detect, deny, respond, and resilient. As we have other pillars. So I have now to pick these pillars to incorporate to our New Year's project. How can we detect radical signs within the schools? Then how can we prevent it? And for us to prevent, we need to respond. How can we respond? because we have Muslims, non-Muslims, different people in the school. And again, how can we form an environment of resilience within the school or learning institutions? So I don't know. I don't know about that. I forgot about the other question. What was it?
That's about it. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both. We're running over, but we might have time for one quick question. If anybody has a quick question and quick answers. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much. This is very, it's been very enlightening. My very simple question is, I'm sitting here and wondering, we're seeing across the world, and especially here in the United States where I am, a rise in these extremist and violent attitudes. And my question to you both is, because I'm sure you spend time on it, do you see some common triggers and trends? And do these trends allow you to predict possible outcomes and solutions? Because at the end of the day, we should be looking at trying to resolve these issues, right? What do you see as these triggers? Are they political, economic? Are they race-based ideologies? Are they religious? So let's go from triggers to solutions.
Thank you,
you.
Eric.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Go ahead, Kavza.
So yeah, I'll try to be very brief. But Mr. Eric's question is also very important from the practitioner's point of view. So let me start by saying that, sir, I deliberately avoid these terminologies because these are abused already. Triggers, then factors, then drivers. I totally avoid these things. I don't, and that is why in my presentation I started saying that, sir, the context is important, because the only reason that, sir, you cannot really finish writing the number of drivers because it changes. You cannot write the triggers. If I really take this word literally, I would only say that trigger events, yes, there are some trigger events might occur in somebody's life for various reasons, personal and economical and political, ideological. For example, in the case of Aaron Driver that I showed you, sir, it was his trigger event was his conversion to Islam, because he strongly believed that he needs to dedicate his life to, for the way he framed it is called redemption, as you might understand, sir. So that was his trigger, trigger event, because the moment he got converted, he thought that that is his only vocation. So I would say that context is important to understand. Yes, there are common trends, of course, because ideology, as you might agree with me, that in many cases in the US, I mean, let's say in two straight binaries, West and versus non-Western countries. So there are common social and political trends that we see, of course, but also there are many more trends available which are not really identical in the Western and non-Western countries. On this note of understanding, the way extremism happens in our society, let me only tell you that, sir, extremism is kind of synonymous to our history, human history. We had extremists and radicals, in our all the ages. Many radicals actually changed our society to be a better society. And if you really push me to talk more, I would say Martin Luther King Jr., then Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, all were radicals, and all were actually terrorists in the eyes of their respective governments. They were incarcerated. They were put in the FBI tracked Martin Luther King Jr. for years, and so the point is not trying to frame those super individuals, those who changed our society. to a narrow framework of triggers and things like drivers and events. So I would say that in summary, we are more interested in understanding a particular phenomena which occurs in a particular society, and then focus it for intervention. And intervention only happens if there is a consensus. And this is what I'm trying to do. It's a very hard job, I tell you, sir. It's a very hard job, because I don't know, people don't agree with the definition of extremism, as the previous speaker said. So my basic challenge in this project is to build consensus that yes, it is a problem. Yes, there is a common way to deal with it. So this is what we are going to achieve. Thank you.
Excellent. And Mohammed, last answer, a brief one, please.
One thing that I have realized from America is that we have the same problem here. Number one, in America, if you see a black person, automatically you see a criminal. Whether he's a doctor, whether he's a lawyer, whoever he is. According to the police force in America, when they see a black person, it happens. You see a criminal person. Here in Kenya, when you see some other person, you see an ATM machine. You see? So, but the question is this. We have been watching the news from on what's happening in the US, especially when it comes to the Black Lives Matter. So we have people who have specific ideology that they want to achieve based on racial skin color. If you see a specific individual or person, then typically you have assigned him into a certain group that he belongs to that group. Doesn't matter whether it's a doctor, a professor, or he's also served in the military. Once you see that person, you assign him to a certain group. So groupings is very high in US, especially in my own community, Somalis living there. When they come back to Kenya here, we give them a funny name. We call them nationalists, which means they came back to learn about their culture. You see? So we believe that those who are in US, they left their culture behind. That's what we believe here in Kenya. So, but the people who live in US, what do they believe on us? Themselves, and how do they see themselves? So the issue of like, if we put extremism just on Muslim perspective, like if you ask a child in the US or in any other country, if you ask him what's extremism, he will tell you ABCD, but what will come to your mind? The first thing is terrorist. And who's terrorist? A Muslim. So the question is again in US itself, how do you define extremism on racial grounds? Not on religious grounds, on racial grounds.